Some places don't kill you instantly. They wait, quietly, patiently, and deep inside the endless red canyons of Utah, one man would learn what true isolation really feels like. This is the story of a man who walked into the wilderness alone and came back missing a part of himself forever. In April of 2003, a young adventurer named Aaron Ralston packed his gear before sunrise and drove toward one of the most dangerous landscapes in America. For Aaron, danger wasn't something to fear. It was freedom. He loved climbing narrow canyons, hanging from cliffs, and exploring places most people would never dare enter. But there was one mistake he made that weekend. He never told anyone where he was going, and no calls, no map left behind. Nothing. At first, the trip felt perfect. The desert was silent except for the wind scraping across the rocks. Massive orange canyon walls towered over him like ancient ruins forgotten by time. He climbed deeper and deeper into the canyon system, squeezing through spaces barely wider than his shoulders. And then, everything changed. While descending through a narrow gap, Aaron grabbed onto a large suspended boulder to stabilize himself. But the rock suddenly shifted. In less than a second, the massive stone crashed downward and pinned his right arm against the canyon wall. The impact was violent. The sound echoed through the canyon. And then there was silence. Aaron screamed in pain and tried to pull himself free. Nothing moved. The boulder weighed hundreds of pounds, maybe more. His arm was trapped completely. At first, he believed he could escape. He pushed against the rock with his legs. He twisted his body until his muscles burned. He used climbing tools to chip at the stone. Hours passed. Nothing worked. And slowly, reality began to settle in. Nobody knew where he was. Nobody was coming. As daylight faded, the canyon became cold and unforgiving. The temperature dropped hard during the night. Alone in the darkness, Aaron sat trapped beside the stone, listening to the empty silence around him. No voices, no animals, no rescue helicopters, just the sound of his own breathing. The next morning he tried again, and again, and again. But every attempt only destroyed more of his energy. His food began running low. His water supply became dangerously small. And under the brutal desert heat, dehydration started taking over. Days inside the canyon felt unreal. Time stopped making sense. Sleep came in short, painful moments. His body weakened. His lips cracked from thirst. And his thoughts began drifting into dangerous places. At one point, he started recording goodbye messages for his family using a small camera. Imagine that for a second, being completely alone. Believing those words might be the last thing your family ever hears from you. He talked to his parents, his friends, the people he loved, not knowing if anyone would ever even find the camera. By the fourth and fifth day, survival became almost impossible. His water was nearly gone. His body was shutting down. Hallucinations started appearing. But then, something changed inside him. The fear disappeared, and determination took its place. Aaron realized something terrifying. The rock was never going to move. If he wanted to survive, there was only one way out. What happened next would become one of the most shocking survival decisions in modern history. Using a dull multi-tool that was never designed for something so extreme, Aaron made the impossible choice. Not because he was fearless, but because the human mind becomes terrifyingly powerful when survival is the only thing left. In a desperate attempt to survive, he made an unthinkable decision. He severed his own arm to escape. For hours, he fought through unbearable pain alone inside that canyon. No doctors, no help, no rescue team. Just one man refusing to die, and somehow, against all odds, he freed himself. But escaping the rock was only the beginning. Weak from dehydration and blood loss, Aaron still had to climb out of the canyon and travel miles through the desert. Every step pushed his body closer to collapse. Then finally, he saw people, real people. A family hiking through the area spotted him, stumbling through the desert, covered in blood and exhaustion. After nearly dying alone in the canyon for more than 5 days, Aaron Ralston survived. His story shocked the world because it forced people to ask a horrifying question. What would you do to survive? Most of us believe we know our limits. But the truth is, we don't. Not until survival strips everything else away. Years later, Aaron's experience became one of the most famous survival stories ever told. Not because of the horror, but because of the impossible strength hidden inside ordinary human beings. The canyon took his arm, but it failed to take his life. And somewhere in those silent red rocks, that massive stone still remains, waiting, silent, unmoving, like it never cared who survived or who didn't. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Nocturne Files for more dark true stories, survival horrors, and unexplained mysteries. Because sometimes the scariest stories are the real ones.